In a world that has been corrupted, divided, and damaged, how does one survive? With an array of issues and the journey towards solving them moving in what seems like slow motion, how does one stay sane through all of this? How does one reach the understanding? After 24 years, hip hop legends Yasiin Bey, formerly known as Mos Def, and Talib Kweli show us just how they reached the understanding on their second collab album, Black Star's No Fear of Time. Being two of the most forward thinking, socially and politically in tune MCs in hip hop history, Mos and Quelly have witnessed and examined many important social issues and have already delivered commentary on these issues that will be remembered for a very long time. While these albums and many others take the stance of dissecting social issues and helping us understand them and how to spark change, Mos and Quelly don't do that at all here. Matter of fact, they realize that two middle aged men talking behind a microphone can't break the system, but instead understand that it can empower the ones willing to listen to them. Both Yassine and Talib dedicate this album to letting us into their thoughts and allowing us to understand how they've been able to navigate so bravely within a world of terror. The opening track, OG, wastes no time beginning this process as Yassine greets us with the line, "Joy and pain, coin of the realm, both sides." This line is used to ease listeners into one of the record's key devices, duality. Duality in terms of beauty and madness within the world, duality in terms of human nature, even duality in terms of the perspectives we will hear from between Mos and Kweli. This duality between Mos and Kweli is made clear and distinct through each verse they spit on the album. Yassine serves as the soul of Black Star, while Talib is the mind. This is reflected in everything from Bey's phantom-like aura to the more in-your-face and brutal style Quelly possesses. This dynamic works out perfectly and in a lot of ways creates a yin and a yang between the artists where their differences are their similarities. Both have spent years with the same mission and despite their different ways of reasoning, culminate these perspectives together to develop one greater understanding for what they're talking about. This is why the intro track works so well, as both MCs establish their own thought paths but tie them together through the mutual understanding that is the power of Blackstar. Most knows the light is not afraid. Talib embraces that the power of him and his running partner have conveyed and forever embedded in this record offers enough strength to pull a planet. It's this exact confidence and momentum that makes the following track, So Be It, so wall breaking. The distorted vocals Mos enters the track coded in adds such a raw feeling, and this is only heightened by the noisy beat that Madlib perfectly rumbles under him. Mos is ruthless here, showing off his silky flow and rash but justified ideas toward corrupt individuals. Mos focuses a lot on how we have been divided and controlled as a society, and attempts to verbally blow up the ones who have caused this division on a spiritual level. The way Bey is able to see through the deception that our society has esteemed itself on is so genius. He questions everything, and his instant analysis of the entire world allows for him to already jump into the next level of critical thinking and reason. Talib builds right off what Mos says, but in a much more literal sense. Mos analyzes the spirits of his enemies and uses that to his advantage, while Talib proposes the game plan to a brighter future just straight up. He plots on taking control from corrupt officials, calling people in positions of power charlatans. The bars that best sum up this track and its entire goal come from Quelly when he says your whole philosophy is mediocrity, atrocity is committed in the name of owning property monopolies, which shows the true agenda of many of the people who hold power within our world. Over a Madlib soul loop, the track Sweetheart, Sweetheart, Sweet Todd spends its time talking about lost innocence. Both MCs understand how difficult it is to stay true in a world, which is especially highlighted in Talib's wordplay that revolves around hiding your soul out of fear for exposing it. Mos spends his section of the track letting go of all the barriers and letting your soul breathe. He asks how noble we have to be to love and how you need to find time to let go of everything. This verse highlights the level of spiritual understanding Mos Def possesses at this point in his life, and he really prescribes the listener a method of taking care of themselves. In his own words, he teaches listeners to find solace in the dark, that the light is not afraid. Throughout these three first tracks, Mos and Quelly show us everything that they are going to build on throughout the rest of the album. They tell us how they perceive the current world's problems, and they also keep the important focus on how to unmask ourselves and find comfort in our own souls, despite a world that challenges us constantly. My favorite band is a solo Mos Def track, and in this moment, he reaffirms the concept of duality as he talks about the human race being the faithful and the graceful, but also the tragic and the classic. Mos's ideas allude to everything from as high as the moon to as low as the bones that are buried at the bottom of the ocean. This song is where No Fear of Time's themes are most apparent. Yasiin Bey is able to address pain, but still ensures those with the same will that he possesses that everything is going to be okay. The line, "If you pray, don't worry, if you worry, don't pray," embodies this at its height. Mos Def uses all of this by the end of the track to paint the lesson that even when the world is whack, life is beautiful. From a lyrical perspective, Bey just adds more reason for why he's one of the greatest lyricists of all time, with an array of tricky and head turning bars. Even when he just rephrases bars back to back on this track, such as, "I hope you get what you want and that you want what you need," it's so complex and serves as the glue to his entire message. The album's second act begins at, "The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing." This is conveyed in everything from the eerie beat to the more aggressive pocket that Mos Def raps in. He talks about being automatic. This represents many things: his spiritual energy that's made him one with his surroundings, his skin color that has made him victim to future injustices. The most powerful section of this verse occurs in its closing bars, as Mos challenges listeners to examine themselves and see which side of the spectrum they lie on. He pushes across an idea that is very anti-establishment in the song's hook, that is, everything is not for sale and that everybody pays a price, which refers to the effects our society dawns upon its victims. Mos Def goes so deep into examination here, he even says he heard Jay Dilla say "turn it up," which is just emotionally numbing as Bey heightens his performance by communicating with the legendary hip-hop icon from another realm. Kweli adds a perfect verse here as he complements Bey's ideas by posing them within a countered lens. He talks about corruption within the system and people referring to white supremacy as a mental illness. He talks about how he's trying to bring change in a society that's stuck in its ways. His final bars on the track are some of the best of his entire career, as he makes allusions to the crumbling state of his culture and the struggle he's fought for. He even says he's not begging for equality, he's simply trying to save whoever is willing to fall in his hands, which he refers back to the album's core themes in this bar. Yonders continues the rising action with a moment that takes a more focused look at violence and the damage it causes. Talib is not impressed by people who brag about being gangsters. He even makes a play on the Lil Wayne bar as a result of this, saying real G's try to stop the violence. He talks about outside groups being false saviors to these problems, and even dedicates some of the track talking about all the division that was created between different groups of native people. Most verse pick right up on this idea as he goes on an incredible display of technical lyricism. He almost takes a front seat in terms of aggression here, as it almost sounds like he's preparing for a battle. The highlight of Moses' verse comes from the bars, "Tell Satan he's a liar and a dummy, I would do it, but he run every time he smells me coming," which is not just a jab at the devil, but is a jab at all of the oppressors, calling them out for all their lies. This bar even adds another level when thinking about it in terms of the music industry, as Moses' level of free and raw thinking has scared many big labels from wanting to work with him. Supreme Alchemy almost works as an interlude here, as in his Talib Kweli solo track, he takes a step back emotionally and topically. The track is still very good with him focusing on the spiritual level he's at. The themes him and Mos opened up about in the intro are built on and summed up again, but now in the light that the listener understands a lot better. Achieve peace and you can determine your own wins. Control the game, you're not a piece in it. These are all ideas Talib emphasizes. Once we are past this checkpoint of a track, we enter the album's final phase, kicked off by the song Frequency with none other than the Roots' Black Thought. This 7-minute anthem begins with Thought telling us about his entire life story, from rags to riches to his gradual understanding of his culture and who he decides to embrace. We see many of the things that have built Black Thought into the man he is today. The verse's second half is definitely the more important section, as the Roots frontman recalls on his journey towards liberating his mind. We see him in the same place Mos and Kweli have expressed about throughout this entire LP, and the spark notes Thought gives about his journey toward this point show anyone willing to reach this point that they can. In the second verse, Kweli focuses on the dynamic between the oppressor and the oppressed again, but in a much more focused way, where he challenges people to question their rulers and challenges rulers to take ownership. He uses bars like, "You'll never be prepared for what we face and if you're scared of confrontation," and even talks about crooked powers directly, demanding them to believe in their people. He Closes this verse demanding that these crooked powers get out of their thrones as they don't deserve the power they have, and they've used it for evil, which is not what it was granted for. This seamlessly flows into Mos Def's verse, where he uses metaphors to paint out a picture of life. He says we are always in school and commentates on the entire world through this idea. Everything is a lecture, and within these lessons, some take him serious and use that to better themselves, while others become the class clowns. He reiterates the theme of the oppressors versus the oppressed, which all ties the verse's closing principles centered around duality. Bars like "nobody makes it out alive" and "nobody ever really dies" all highlight this force to the fullest. On the final song of the record, "No Fear of Time," we hear about the never ending cycle of oppression, and Kweli suggests to those to find solutions instead of playing the oppression Olympics, as he says. Most centers his final verse talking about everything that he has endured to get to the point he's at today. He makes an allusion to Noah's Ark, and in a sense, Mos and Kweli just built the modern musical equivalent to the biblical story. The world is flooding, and not everyone wants to be saved, but for Mos and Kweli, understanding what they're saying in this album is their belief towards what can guide us to sail across the flood. The outro of this song contains Mos saying "float on" until the song evolves and singer Yummy Bingham repeats the phrase, "I want to thank you for helping me reach the understanding," the exact phrase that Mos said in the album's opener on OG. This is poetic in every way, and Yummy's place here represents our place. We represent the resolve, the reach of the understanding. Overall, No Fear of Time is an absolutely incredible record that is so powerful. Mos and Kweli express their ideas towards self-healing in a world that can't do anything but destroy itself so beautifully, and you may learn a few things that can actually empower you through this process. Musically, the album is just as good, with Mos and Kweli being masters of their craft at this point. We just talked about how sharp their pen games are, but beyond that, their flow, delivery, songwriting skills, control are all so strong. Talking about how great this album is musically, we gotta give Madlib his flowers for putting the soundscape together and really just making another one of the genre's great records. The beats he uses are wonderful. They fit every emotion they try to convey so well, and all the effects and morphs that are throughout the instrumental loops and the vocals on Kweli and Mos, they culminate into a record that just sounds so beautiful. It sounds so calculated, and that's an entire theme throughout the record. They don't waste any time. I mean, in really just a half an hour, Mos and Kweli say every single thing they want to get across that they've been waiting for 24 years to say together. It really shows how they did not waste a bar. They are always on point. They understand each other's strengths so well. This is really great, and I mean the rawness that is embodied in everything from the bars to the beats. It just perfects the message Black Star's trying to get across. Overall, I'm going as far to say that this is really in, the better upper echelon of the best rap albums ever created. For all of the reasons I just talked about, I'm going to be giving Black Star No Fear of Time a 9.4 out of 10, which is the second highest score I have ever given out to an album that is just released. Do you agree with my rating? Be sure to let me know in the comments. Thank you all for watching so much. Your support means everything. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so you can see when I post next. We got a huge week coming up with Kendrick Lamar dropping his album, Mr. Morale, and the Big Steppers on Friday, which is probably going to need an even crazier review. Thank you all for watching. Mr. Fantastic, Fantastic Hip Hop. Have a great day.